Well, I was just telling Derek and Sharon Gilbert that to try to follow Sharon, I'm done and I'm leaving now, so hopefully you've had a very good time. Actually, just before I get started, what I really do want to do is I want to ask my wife, Nita. You might know her as the Pied Piper of ponies. She's a horse whisperer. She's the light of my life. I want her to come and say hi to you.
Thank you for this opportunity to greet you. I don't normally do this, but I wanted to, and I was excited about it, and I didn't know what to say when I got up here, but something really cool happened to me today. So I'm going to get emotional for just a second, so bear with me, because I'm a girl. All of this talk, apocalypse, DNA change, end of the world, last days, I love it and I hate it. I love it because we know that the redemption draweth nigh.
Right.
And so I'm happy about that. I hate it because what I do love, besides all my little ponies, is I love my kids and my grandkids. I loved them before they were born. I loved them before they were born. And I love them even now before they're born. There are more to come. I'm sure there'll be more grandkids, and I'm loving them even before they're born. But I also hope for their future. And I know where my hope lies, and I know what our calling is. And we cannot stop at this conference. This is the beginning of what our job is,
right.
And that's to get the word out. So I met a wonderful lady earlier today, Terry. Thank you so much for coming back to the table and talking to me for a moment. She made me realize that I am not alone in how I feel. And God has given me an opportunity mid of next year to host a ladies' event. And she agreed to pray for me because this is a very difficult subject for emotional women to cover because we just want to either cry or, we want to go home and hug our kids and our grandkids. We want to hope for the future, but we also don't want to be caught without oil in our lamp. It's a very tough challenge, and I know that God has brought me to this to do. So she's going to pray for me. Thank you. And if there's anyone else out there that would like to pray for me, please feel free to. Thank you.
Watch out for your stuff there. I'm going to pull this off and hold it just in case we have the same kind of a problem, but I'm such a big bag of wind that probably don't need the microphone anyway. Oh, I have to say, following Jeffrey Ratt and Russ Dizdar and Derek and Sharon Gilbert and Sharon's presentation a moment ago, now what have I got to do? There's no winning. I'm already on the downside, so I'll just let it fly, I guess. See what I told you I would do, Mr. Cameraman? Hey, I want to say, by the way, to Sam and Alice Miller, who are here and who are running these cameras, and they're doing this just as a gift. I wasn't here earlier. I don't know if we told them thank you, but would you give them a round of applause because they very much appreciate their ministry. One other thing, as I was listening to Sharon Gilbert's presentation, if you have not read her book, The Armageddon Strain, you should do so because you will be amazed how this book was written some years ago, but it is actually unfolding before our eyes right now in terms of how technology has finally caught up to her potential vision of some years ago. It's a scary vision. It's going to scare people like my wife. But maybe it'll also help us to get on our knees and pray about the future and also to get involved. I should tell you that some years ago, following Dr. Willard Cantillon at the Oregon Bethel Park, whatever it was called, old-fashioned family camp meeting, kind of reminds me of having to stand up behind Sharon Gilbert because his opening line was, "Man is not a transcendental ideation of intraseptic autocatholic solidaric redaction, nor an orgasmic individuality of mobilized egresses, nor an atypical vodality of voltronized, transfusiformed differentiation spontaneously race-mated into homogeneous individuality." And I said, "Say what?" He explained shortly thereafter that all he had said was that man is not a process of evolution. And his point was that these people who want to support evolution, whatever, they will do what an old preacher I knew years ago who used to use the term 16-cylinder phraseology. They'll wrap their conversation in all these big difficult words in order to try to give it the pretense of being scientifically supported or philosophically supported or whatever. And if you can't keep up with the language, then obviously you're the idiot and they're right, so get on board and believe in evolution. And his whole point was, it's all a smokescreen, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we've been hearing about the smokescreen today. Oh, and the first giant catastrophe in today's conference occurred when Sharon got up to speak. I was outside, I came in, and my wife said, "Oh, don't tell the joke, Sharon just told it." I had it all worked out because I was on Prophecy in the News, PID last week, and Derek reminded me of this joke, you know, the transhumanists that go up before heaven and say, "We can make a better man than you can," and God says, "You're going to have to get your own dirt." Evidently you told it. Yes. I can't tell it. But I have an alternative. A little girl goes to her daddy. You always have to have a backup plan in case there's a Sharon Gilbert in the audience. And she says, "Daddy, where did people come from?" And the daddy says, "Well, a long time ago, God made Adam and Eve. He made man in his image, and Adam and Eve began having babies, and before you know it, here's all the human race." So she waited a couple of days, and she went to her mommy. And she said, "Mommy, where did people come from?" And the mommy said, "Well, a long time ago, there were monkeys, and people evolved from the monkeys." Well, that confused her. So she went back to her daddy, and she said, "Daddy, you said that God made man in his image, and that's where everybody came from. Mommy says that they descended from the apes." And he said, "Well, it's really, it's simple, honey. I was telling you about my side of the family, and she was telling you about hers." Oh, after today, I don't care. But you almost ruined everything for me, so boy. But now, the funny thing about that is, that's not really quite so funny, is that seriously, folks, transhumanism intends to blend monkeys, apes, synthetic life forms with humanity before the end of this century. And that is a fact. That's not just a fringe fact. That's a National Science Foundation report fact. That's a DARPA fact. That's a U.S. intelligence fact. That's a Jason's, the highest think tank at the U.S. Pentagon fact. And many of them are pointing towards the year 2012, but maybe we'll get to that in just a moment. It is not fringe, in other words. In leading think tanks around the world, Dr. Leon Kass, the former chairman of the President's Council on Bioethics, he says in think tanks and laboratories around the world, right now the groundwork is being written. The design, if you will, is being drafted, by which the rest of us are going to get in line or get out of the way or potentially be considered the enemies of progress. And I may say something about that in a few minutes too, if you've been following anything over at Raiders News Network and some of the attacks upon me recently, but maybe we'll talk about that in just a moment. I would venture to say that right here in Ohio, and oh, by the way, I was a preacher for 25 years, and what my body is wanting to do is walk across the stage and, you know, but I'm trying to have pity upon the poor cameraman and stay here. He's telling me he don't care, but he does not know the speed he would need on that camera to keep up with me. I mean, I was an old-fashioned preacher of the Russ Dizdar type. You know, we get to go and we leap pretty high and shout pretty loud, but it's the message at the end of the day that matters, right, Russ? I would venture to say that right here in Ohio, the average Ohioan has no clue. Now, maybe inside these walls you do, but in this state, most of them do not know that in 2006, right here in Ohio, Case Law School in Cleveland, Ohio, was the recipient of a $773,000 Department of Health, the largest U.S. agency that gives grants for research related to health issues, received $773,000. In fact, I have their press release right here. This is from Case Law School. Case Law School received $773,000 NIH grant to develop guidelines for what? For genetic enhancement research. You can go to our website and download that press release. The whole purpose behind the $773,000 grant was for a 24-month period of time for Professor Maxwell Mellman, who is the professor of bioethics at Case Law School, to lead a team of scientists, researchers, and also persons who have an interest in government policy over a 24-month period of time to do one thing only: to establish the guidelines that will be used in setting public policy, that is, in other words, law, by which all of us will live, that will regulate the next step in human evolution, human enhancement. That happened right here, 2006. Well, in 2009, just last year, the 24-month research period was over. Professor Mellman, and if you read this, and I won't take time to read it to you, they talk about using human subjects during this 24-month period of time. So I had sat back, bated breath. I wanted to know, in what way do you use human subjects in experiments for establishing guidelines that will be used for setting public policy with regard to human enhancement as the next step in human evolution? I wanted to know. I'm a taxpayer. This was a taxpayer-funded study. You paid for it. I wanted to know, how were humans used? Well, there was no disclosure yet on how they were used, but here's what I noticed: that immediately when it was finished being funded, Professor Mellman began traveling in the United States, going to different universities in the United States, giving these two university lectures. Number one, directed evolution. Sharon, directed evolution, public policy and enhancement. And the second lecture, transhumanism and the future of democracy. And if you think I'm kidding you, you can go to Arizona State University, you can go to Google, you can type in Professor Mellman's name and type in these titles, and you can actually go and download the audios where at different universities he's giving these lectures. I went and listened to them myself. I was amazed in one of them where he talks about how, yes, human enhancement may in fact lead to an extinction level event. Yes, it may lead to the eradication of all life on earth, but we're going to do it anyway. And that was really his position. Besides those who are in Ohio, I would venture to say that very few Americans are aware that just this last year, in 2009 in California, there was a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. It was chaired by Democrat Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman was picked, by the way, to chair this series of hearings because of his expertise in the spread of weapons of mass destruction among terrorists. Well, what was Brad Sherman, this expert, excuse me, in weapons of mass destruction among terrorists? What meeting was he chairing? What was these House Foreign Affairs Committee hearings all about? Mark Stenzel, who is a writer for the Congressional Quarterly, attended the HFA hearings. He came back. You can Google his article. He wrote an article for CQ, for Congressional Quarterly, called Genes Without Borders, in which he described attending a series of government hearings in which he said, hey, Rob Skiba is a filmmaker. He's working on a series right now. He's got the pilot, I think, is being made. He's made the trailer to sell it to whoever the buyers are in Hollywood or television or elsewhere. The film is called Seed. Go to Google, type it in, find it, go there, watch the trailer. If you can support this project, do so. But hey, Rob, at the HFA hearing, what CQ writer Mark Stenzel made us aware of, he said it was more like listening to a Hollywood pitch for a sci-fi movie than it was a sober discussion of scientific reality, with its descriptions by government officials of near future horizon superhumans, super animals, and super intelligence that will become a lethal force against which we are not prepared. Well, just when I was packing up to leave on this trip, have you seen this? The Global Governance 2025 at a Critical Juncture. Have you seen this report? Go to our website, Forbidden Gate, singular, not plural. I know, the book's Forbidden Gates, plural. The website's only Forbidden Gate. Sorry. Went to get the domain and somebody else already owned it. Checked to make sure first it wasn't a porn site, and it wasn't, so we went ahead with ForbiddenGate.com. Wouldn't want any confusion there about how exciting our next book is. You'll find a link there where you can download this. This came out this week. This is September 2010. Came out this week. This report by the United States intelligence community and by the European intelligence community. You know what's terrible is you're way over there, I have to have glasses on. When I'm close, can't have glasses on. I want to read you just a part of this. Go and download this, read the whole thing for yourself, because the whole report is on global governance. And what they're talking about are the various issues, the causal agents, if you will, that are pushing us toward a global government. U.S. intelligence, European intelligence community, just now published, September 2010. But go to page 35 and note where they say this: no forum currently exists for dealing comprehensively across the scientific community, industry, and governments on measures needed to diminish the risks posed by the biotechnology revolution. Now, what are the risks? What exactly do they mean? Well, they certainly do mean some of what Sharon Gilbert was talking about, the potential for terrorists to get their hands on living biological entities, the remake of a mouse pox or something else that they could release into dense community populations that could literally become a Black Death. They do mean all of that, and there are security agents right now that are staying up at night afraid of the very fact that we haven't yet had somebody buy one of your sequencing machines. Well, I don't think you're selling them. But in any case, but what were they talking about? What is their fear? What is the fear of American intelligence, European intelligence, when talking about biotechnology as one of those things that could push us suddenly into the need for a global government? Here's what they say, 35. I've dropped down only a half of one paragraph. In addition, biotechnology, which the OECD thinks will potentially boost the GDPs of its members, listen, can drive new forms of human behavior and association, creating profound cross-cultural ethical questions that will increasingly become politically contentious. Few experts believe that current governance instruments are adequate for these challenges. Then they give an example. For example, direct modification of DNA at fertilization, now we're talking about germline engineering, is widely researched with a goal of removing defective genes, in other words, our own form of eugenics. However, discussions of future capabilities open the possibility for designing humans with unique physical, emotional, or cognitive abilities, in quotes. Amazing, huh? U.S. intelligence, European intelligence, providing what? This is an 85-page report you can download and read for yourself. Go to page 35 to read the quote that I was just making. But quoting what causes could suddenly set in motion the need for a global government, and here's human enhancement. The same thing that the HFA hearings in California were saying, that we are on the cusp of something we cannot stop because our enemies, this is what the Jasons are saying, this is what DARPA is saying, this is what the U.S. Air Force is saying. Our enemies will develop this technology ahead of us. Go to Wired Magazine just to get a glimpse and read the article called Jason's Fear, Brain Modified Foes, and how the Wired Magazine got a leaked document from the Pentagon, in which the leading think tank at the Pentagon is saying this technology is getting out of the box. It's already starting. They're already doing it. You know, I haven't seen the movie, but the movie Splice, have any of you seen that movie? I did a show with Steve Quayle recently. He's telling me all about the movie Splice. Part human, part animal creature, but something happens. It suddenly starts mutating. It becomes something else. It grows wings. It becomes what, Russ? Demonic? Suddenly it's turning into a giant, the Nephilim, the spirit of the offspring, and now we've opened a gateway through our technology. Well, but our own leading security experts are saying, yeah, blah, 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 can't help it. Other people around the world, China, the Soviet Union, anybody who can develop this technology is developing it right now. We are in a position, the Jasons believe that this is the next arms race. Super soldier technology and many other ramifications of weaponized biology is the next curve, if you will, taking us where we're going to go. Well, to put it on a very practical platform, am I talking too fast? Am I talking too loud? Am I talking too stupid? Okay. Because all of the above, when you're an old preacher, can happen at any moment. And you have to get somehow back, if you can. You get on a pig trail and it's, where am I? Oh, Lord help me. Birkbeck Law School. And I haven't looked in my notes in so long that I don't think I know where I'm at anymore, so hopefully that's okay too. Birkbeck Law School is one of the leading crime scene investigation schools in the world, out of the UK. They put out a press release 24 months ago in which they said on this very practical premise that in the not too distant future they're going to have to develop new classes. Guess what for? Analyzing crime scenes that are the result of human non-humans, that are the result of enhanced humans, because nothing we know about forensics or profiling, you know how they go into a crime scene, they do all, everything it is they do. I don't even watch CSI, the television movie, so I really can't explain it. Shouldn't try. But they go in and they do all that they do, and they come out of it. Okay, we're looking for a male, and he's 25 to 35 years of age. He's probably of an affluent community, whatever. So they have rules that have been developed over 200 years or more in which they've learned to analyze a crime scene. And now what Birkbeck Law School is saying, throw it all out the door. Because if we are dealing with a crime scene that is, let's say, something that was perpetrated by a serial rapist who is part wolf, we're dealing with a werewolf. That sounds insane. That's what they were saying. We wouldn't have a clue. We would not know. This thing might have a bloodlust for human blood, like an animal might, in ways that we simply cannot possibly comprehend. Is that sci-fi? No, it's exactly where we're going. Let me move quickly so I don't get too far behind. If you've been paying any attention to Raiders News Network, the National Science Foundation report, did any of you see any of this posted at Raiders News Network where it said, Tom Horn is an extremist pig who would make the Unabomber proud? Did you see that? Well, a few of you did. Well, for those of you that didn't, which is apparently the majority, here's what happened. I put out a press release, and it was simply called Open Letter to Christian Leaders on Biotechnology and the Future of Man. Because I have to tell you, here's what my passion is. What is driving me on this? I want the Christian community to get involved in this discussion on transhumanism in particular, but even in just simply the genetic sciences before it is too late. People just like you, people just like those you have heard speak here today, I want those numbers to swell. Why? Because we're going to lose this battle, and very fast. Because the rules, the guidelines are being determined right now by pro-transhumanist think tanks. And that's from within the government, from within the military, from within academia. They are setting the rules right now by which all of us, your children and your grandchildren, are going to live. And every one of them, to no exception, see the transhumanist idea. Oh, what is transhumanism? Did I forget to say? Transhumanism, you could go all the way back to Gilgamesh, those who want to become gods. You could go to the Enlightenment era. But when I speak of transhumanism, I'm simply talking about a modern cultural movement today that is made up of people all across the world who believe that we now have it within our power to use technology to advance human evolution, rewrite our genetics, cybernetically enhance ourselves, make a better version of human 2.0 than what God made. The technology is here, so they believe we no longer need to wait on the daunting task of natural evolution. Who needs 1,000,000 years of evolution when we can get it all in one day? Woohoo! That's what they're saying. Of course, I'm like Ian Fleming, or Ian Malcolm, I guess his name was, in Jurassic Park, being chased down the road by a giant Tyrannosaurus man-eating Rex, saying, "Who thought this was a good idea?" You know. Well, anyway, so I put out an open letter, and it went across the newswire. Got picked up by Wired magazine. A lot of others picked it up. Well, pretty soon, like the next day, the #1 transhumanist blog, Accelerating Futures, which is operated by a man by the name of Michael Anisimov. Michael is a co-coordinator for the Singularity Summit. Have you heard of that? And very connected, if you will, at the hip with Ray Kurzweil, Aubrey de Grey, you know, all the leading transhumanists. So he's part of them, but this is his blog. So he puts up a piece of that article, went out and did a little homework and found you know, some YouTubes of me recently down in Portland with Alex Ansari doing his show Outside the Box on transhumanism, put that on the top of his website. Went and found the Forbidden Gates. Have you seen the book trailer? Yeah, some guy's injecting nanobots in him and becoming demonic, and well, they really didn't like that. Put that on the top of the website too, just for good order. Well, pretty soon, all over Accelerating Futures, the most vitriolic, terrible, hate-filled things were being said about me by people who don't know me from Adam. They don't know where I come from. They don't know what motivates me. They don't know my logic. They don't know my temperament or spirit or anything else. But they're over there saying they hope I get cancer and die. Why? What was my crimes against humanity? I had asked Christians to read the NSF report and other reports and become aware of what is happening, what your taxpayers are paying for, or your dollars are paying for. Become aware of it, get involved in the debate. Well, they hated that. Well, then by the next day, somehow, Patrick Lynn, who is the co-author of the new National Science Foundation report, Ethics of Human Enhancement, 25 questions and answers, another taxpayer-funded report that just came out, he found out about it. Well, he went over to the IET. Now, this is the world's leading online transhumanist think tank. So he posts this article over there. The name of the article is Wrestling with Pigs. So I opened the article because somebody sent it to me and said, hey, you're in the spotlight at the IEET. And it's all about my call for Christians. And he didn't like the fact that I had told Christians, get the NSF report. Look at don't just read the NSF report, look at the people who are operating behind it. Look at their organizations, what groups they belong, what seats they hold, what institutions they are part of, because it is a who's who of transhumanist dreamers worldwide. Well, Patrick did not like that. He didn't like it because he publicly tries to say he's not a transhumanist, though he holds a seat at the IEET, but he will say he's not a transhumanist. Okay, I give him a break. He's not a transhumanist. He's just a guy who's very sympathetic to the transhumanist cause. I don't care. I'm saying, get this, read it. Well, he didn't like it. And he furthermore, and he's talking about you as much as he's talking about me. Because he makes the point over there at the IET that they had found somewhere a Lutheran pastor who was fine with human transhumanism. It's okay, cool, might be the fulfillment of God's will for our lives. Well, that kind of a guy, he says, welcome in. But like me and you, conservatives who might see this as an affront to the divine order, and at a minimum as the gateway to a biological nightmare, who have concerns about this and who want a real, true, open forum in the public, in the debate. Let's get this on television. Let's get it in universities. Let's get both sides of the issues. Let's get conservative bioethicists, men like Francis Fukuyama and others, and Sharon for that matter. Let's put them up on the stage and let's have this debate. Yeah. I nominate Sharon. How about you? Well, they didn't like that. They don't like that. And the language was so loaded. When you read it, you'll see what I mean, because he tried to be clever, but he's weaving in words like, you know, there's this side of Christianity, but that other side. And he uses loaded words like extremists. He actually says those people who would make Ted Kaczynski the Unabomber proud. So now all of a sudden you're being stereotyped. If you're a conservative, and especially if you believe in biblical prophecy, you are a potential terrorist. You're not invited to this discussion. You're not to be part of this. Well, you know what? I say forget that. I am invited. I'm coming whether you want me or not. And I'm bringing as many as I can bring with me, and we're going to talk about this issue in a public forum. Well, he hated that. You know what was great, though? Let me tell you something about you folks. Within whatever it was, a 2 or 3 day period, I went to YouTube and I pulled down, they had put the video that Joe and the rest of his team made. By the way, you met my wife, but there is the wild man of the Ozarks, the most guitar assassinating crazy man you've ever met in your life. Serving as my slave, as it should be. Well, I thought I had already introduced you to my wife. By the way, at my house, when you open up the dictionary and you read better half, there's a picture of her in there. Of course, she's the one that pasted it in there, but it's in there. Where was I at? Oh, we're talking about, so let me get back on this. What time is it? How much time do I have?
Don't worry about it. Forever.
Yeah, you say that now. So anyway, Patrick Lynn, co-author of the National Science Foundation report, tries to take me to task. Well, guess what happened? They posted our YouTube video over there that Joe made. I went over there after 3 days. I went to YouTube and dropped the window down and looked down to see where the traffic was coming from. They had 200 plays from their website. News with Views had 800 plays from their website. Raiders News Network had 10,000 plays from its website. And they had to shut down the comment section at the IET. If you think I'm kidding, you go there and pull down to the bottom and look at it, and they said we had to shut down this section, just too many comments. And plus, we didn't like some of those comments that were talking about how we're all going to burn in hell. There probably was one that said that, and 50 others that were making good rational sense about, look, I mean, even Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, he's not a Christian. He's a scientist that subscribes to the chaos theory. He's saying God didn't allow for it, but neither did natural evolution. And what we are doing now has no precedent. And we are living with we are tinkering with biological forces that have the potential to annihilate mankind in a single hour. So doesn't somebody somewhere think that bioconservatives ought to be involved in this discussion? Well, absolutely yes. Well, anyway, took issue, said that it wasn't fair. He's not a transhumanist. Well, there goes the glasses. So let me read you what he said. Let me read you what he says. This is his words. Co-author, National Science Foundation, and you can tell me if you think I'll get him. I got one guy over there he should have ran right over here and got him. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm going to pay for it later, I got to tell you. It's fun now. Payday later. Here's what he says. This is the start of the brand new National Science Foundation Ethics of Human Enhancement, 25 questions and answers. And they tell you that they've written this because the discussion has to start now to set the guidelines by which we are going to set national policy, law. How will the Constitution, how will the Bill of Laws be extended to a man who's part human, who's part monkey? How much has to be human for the Bill of Rights to extend to him? At what point does he no longer become a human? The Jews are weighing in on this just to show how insane the ethics behind where we're going now is. And they're saying, well, if he's part cow, how much could be cow before we could offer him as a sacrifice? But the point that they're making is there is no way. I mean, once you cross this boundary, there is no going back. but we're crossing the boundary anyway. Well, here's what Mr. Patrick Lynn says. This is your taxpayer-funded reports. You might want to know what you paid for. Quote, "It is not just the world around us that we desire to change. Since the beginning of history, we also have wanted to become more than human, to become homo superior. From the godlike command of Gilgamesh, to the lofty ambitions of Icarus, to the preternatural strength of Beowulf, to the mythical skills of Shaolin monks, and to various shamans and shapeshifters, Russ, shapeshifters throughout the world's history, we have dreamt and still dream of transforming ourselves to overcome our all too human limitations." Those are the opening lines to the National Science Foundation report. He says this, "With ongoing work to unravel the mysteries of our minds and bodies, coupled with the art and science of emerging technologies, we are near the start of the human enhancement revolution." Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's telling the truth. As a matter of fact, as I was doing research on this for the last 15 years, but very intently over the last 4 or 5 years, and then specifically over the last couple of years, leading towards the writing of Apollyon Rising 2012, but more specifically this new book, Forbidden Gates, I found that almost to a man, almost to a letter, every one of these reports are pointing to the year 2012, which was very astonishing to me, that these military, even, what's his name? I printed it here just before I left because I can never think of his name. I don't have it. I do have it. I do have it. Counterterrorism czar Richard Clark. Oh, thank you. That's his job. Counterterrorism czar Richard Clark in his book Breakpoint. Have you read it? Year 2012 begins the quickening, the unfolding of human enhancement, and it starts. The singularity arrives, and the human enhancement revolution begins in earnest, and most of the world is very, very excited about it. We all get to be more powerful, we're going to live longer, we're going to do all these things, we can see into other dimensions. But you know what he also says in Breakpoint? That those who are conservative and who are against the human enhancement revolution are stereotyped as terrorists, and we are locked away. There is an ideological war that is unfolding right now for the mind of this generation. And ladies and gentlemen, we get involved with this or we don't. And if we don't, we abdicate to those types of visionaries, our future and the future of our children. The good news is there was a reason why there was 10,000 downloads from Raiders News Network and 200 from the IET, because we outnumber them by the hundreds of thousands. We don't have to let them define for us what our future will be. Now, I should also tell you that I am not, I'm not a neo-Luddite. I'm not against technological progression. I'm not. Look here, I've already been enhanced. But to the extent that we start talking about redefining what it means to be a human, blending our genetics with animals and plant life and other types of things, somewhere you have to draw a line. Or at least in my mind you do. And I believe that there is wisdom that God has that we don't have. Why did God order each kind to reproduce after its own kind? What does He know that we don't know? Well, a great deal, I'm sure of that. Huh? Yeah. You're like that guy, you know, the remake of The Fly. And he's building a transporter, and he gets in it, and he's going to move from here to there. And during a transportation process, he accidentally has his DNA integrated with a normal housefly. Well, he comes out on the other side, and a few days later, man, he starts becoming the transhumanist dream come true. Sexual proclivities of an African lion can outrun everybody, stronger, faster. But then something else starts happening. And that's that unknown. The unknown, where you start mutating into a horrific monster and you have to be destroyed. Those are very, very real possibilities. Have you seen the movie I Am Legend? And if you watch it, there's a Sharon, but an unsaved Sharon Gilbert. right in the very beginning of it, a geneticist, an unsaved one though. And she's saying, we have found the cure to cancer. And it turns out the cure to cancer is a vaccine that is a concoction of human and animal genetics. The reason it can cure cancer is because some animals, I guess, have a great resilience to cancer. So they figure out some way to blend human and animal genetics. They create a vaccine. All the world celebrates. Everybody's inoculated. Nobody has cancer. Then the scene goes dark. Then the scene opens up and almost all life on earth is annihilated. Why? Because the human form of rabies developed as a result of crossing over a barrier that God, in His infinite wisdom, had put in place, and it wipes out most all humanity. So I trust in God. I'm a biblical literalist, and I have real issues with some of the place we're going. Am I getting offline? Off track? Let me just read you a couple of things that they say here in the NSF, which you paid for. As examples of emerging technologies in the last year or so, a couple imaginative inventions in particular among many are closing the gap. Even more between science fiction and the real world, scientists have conceptualized a touch display designed to be implanted just under the skin that would activate special tattoo ink on one's arm to form images such as telephone number keys to punch or even to watch a video. Together with ever-shrinking computer devices, we appear to be moving closer to cybernetic organisms or cyborgs, that is, where machines are integrated with our bodies. Does this sound prophetic to anybody but me? Really? I mean, am I just a radical who would make Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, proud? Yeah, let's go terrorize the transhumanists. You can read this for yourself. Here's another quick clip. Now, are these people channeling the Nomo? We can also envision the possibility that prosthetic flippers designed today for dolphins, along with artificial gills, might be requested by humans who want to transform into an aquatic animal. Your tax dollars at work.